I'm actually pretty excited about this game tonight because the Bears have been, maybe worse than last year, if you can believe it. And when you look overall at their numbers defensively, they are almost rock bottom in the league. So I think we're going to get some fireworks in this game tonight. I think the total is too low. It crept up a little bit to 44.5 now across the screen. But I'm just trying to also figure out which player or players are going to pop for the Commanders, because this game is screaming Brian Robinson. But I also, and I'll break this down coming up in a little bit, I think there's a spot here, despite the recent downfall in the snaps for Antonio Gibson. I think that he can have a role in tonight's game. And it's like McLaurin, Dotson, pharmacist, doctor, both guys I think can go off tonight because the Bears' defense is so bad and the secondary is completely ravished because of injuries.
I'd look at the over. You have to look at the over. Points per game allowed. Bears 31, Washington 29. And the Washington defense has certainly struggled. What happened against Philadelphia last week? The Bears only have 2 sacks on the season.
They get zero pressure on the quarterback.
No pressure. They haven't covered 7 in a row. Going back to last year, we know they've lost 14 in a row. Washington has an easy schedule coming up, so if they can win this, 5-2 isn't out of the question. They have been on an underrun, though, at home, a 25-1 underrun, last 26 home games for the Commanders. But there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of problems in Chicago. There have been multiple reports that if this is ugly tonight, Eberflus is out. I can't go there. I reached out to Mike North and some other people. Number one, the Bears have never done that. Number two, you would be firing your head coach and your defensive coordinator. So then plus Bear fans probably want to keep the guy around so you can get the number 1 and number 2 pick.
Right.
Or at least the number 1 pick, because you have Carolinas and see what they do. But this is just a travesty and a train wreck what's happened with all the hype and MVP talk with Fields and playoffs and go over the win total, and the hype wouldn't stop. Their adjusted win total is now 4.5. So you got the Claypool mess. You got how Eberflus handled that afterwards with the weird stuff with the reporter about what's true, and the team has to come out with a statement. They can't stop anything. They blow a 21-point lead against Denver. Mm-hmm. He makes a decision to go for it with 2 minutes left, 4th and 1, blows up in his face. Everything's gone wrong for Chicago.
Yeah, and here's the secondary situation for the Bears tonight as well. No Eddie Jackson, no Jalen Johnson, no Kyler Gordon, and now we're looking at potentially Jaquan Brisker might be missing the game tonight as well. So they're down everybody in the secondary the way it looks. And here's the deal with Sam Howell. When he has a clean pocket to throw from, Paulie, his passer rating is 99.3. Well, where Howell has struggled so far in the first month of his career is when you put pressure on the guy. His passer rating goes from 99.3 clean to 36.7. 36.7 when you put pressure on the guy. Here's the rub. The Bears are 30th in pressure percentage in the entire league, hence the only 2 sacks that you brought up already.
Mm-hmm. That's a big key to the game, because that's right. Washington's on pace. Howell can be the most sacked quarterback in history. So if they can't get pressure tonight, they're never getting pressure.
Right.
Because this whole line has been horrendous, and I know he's holding on to the ball too long, but still, he's been sacked 24 times. Carr has the record, 76, with the Texans.
Yep. And when you look at, again, where will the Commanders attack this Bears defense? Certainly the secondary looks like it could be, priority number 1. However, when you look at running backs against the Bears, they're 31st in DVOA in defense. They're basically rock bottom. It doesn't matter if you're talking about passing or rushing. But here's what opposing running backs have done to the Bears so far this year. Aaron Jones had 9 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown. The key there is, though, he also had 2 catches, 86 yards, and another touchdown. Rachaad White for the Buccaneers, Week 2, had 17 for 73 and a touchdown, 5 catches for 30 yards. Week 3, it was everybody for the Chiefs. Pacheco, 62 yards rushing, touchdown. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 55 yards, touchdown. McKinnon in the air, 3 catches, 19 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last week, Jaleel McLaughlin had 7 carries, 72 yards, along with 3 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown. So you see the point here of Brian Robinson should go nuts tonight. And I'm not going to rule out Antonio Gibson, again, despite the lack of snaps last week, because these backup running backs or second-string guys or third-string, third down guys have come in and also scored against the Bears defense as bad as they've been.
What if they don't like the coach? What if they can't stand Eberflus? and they see and read these reports. Well, if it gets ugly, maybe he's gone with the mini bye here. I mean, I don't know if what the players think like that, but it's certainly been demoralizing and a joke the start of this season.
Well, how do they have any semblance of a decent culture in the locker room right now? There's no way they can. They have to hate going to work right now.
Yep, and they like the defensive coordinator, Williams, who resigned. Certainly this wasn't handled well with the Claypool situation, also what they gave up for the guy, and now he's finished. They're just poorly coached all the way across the board. 23rd in penalties, 28th in turnover differential, 28th in total defense. Now going back to the points allowed, 31st, and they're 31st in DVOA you mentioned. Denver's number 1, the worst in the league, 32. Denver, through 4 games, is the worst defense DVOA in history through 4 games, giving up 37 a game. So that's the only team that they're better than. So this really is an atrocious defense, to put it in perspective. And Washington should do whatever they want. And the other thing, what happens offensively? Do the Bears get something going on offense? And because everyone's looked good against Denver, and Fields was great for 3 quarters last week. So Frank B was on yesterday, and he recommends Fields to throw an interception. That's as high as $1.40. But it's just everything has gone wrong this year. Everything blown out by the Packers. What happened last week was and then competitive in Tampa, and then Fields calls out the OC after the game too, after the pick 6.
Now I do think the Bears are also going to be able to do stuff here offensively with the ball, because the Commanders' defense, I mean, it's not like they're anything really to write home about either. The problem is here, if the Commanders get out to going on game flow, if they get out to a nice lead, they are 26th overall in neutral settings in seconds per play. So if they get out to, let's say, a 7-point lead or more than a 1-score lead, I could just see it where it's going to be a heavy dose of Brian Robinson, and maybe they go on these long, sustained drives that take 8.5 minutes off the clock, and then, who knows, maybe they settle for a field goal, and then that's where the under would actually come into play, and you might be dead on the over ticket. But in terms of wide receivers against this Commanders defense on the year, Week 1, Cardinals didn't do too much. They were still trying to figure things out, and they were a mess at the beginning of the season. But from Week 2 on, in that game against the Broncos, Mims had 2 for $113 and a touchdown. Brandon Johnson had 2 for 66 and 2 scores. Diggs for the Bills in Week 3 went off for 8 and 111 yards. And then last week, pick which guy. A.J. Brown, 9 for 175 and 2 scores. Devontae Smith had 7 for 78. And DJ Moore, somehow, some way, only had 2 targets in Week 1.
Oh, yeah.
Since then, 7, 6, and 9. So, again, in theory tonight, Bears are down, throwing the ball maybe a little bit more. Fields he's been going to, a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. That guy is someone to keep an eye on as well. Komet went nuts last week, but the Broncos are really bad. Well, they're bad against everybody, but especially tight ends.
Yep. Could be a sneaky survivor play, too, across the country. We'll see. A couple people tried to talk me into Washington. I couldn't get there. But, again, you're looking at a team that's lost 17 of 18 and 14 in a row. Not only have the Bears lost 14 in a row, they're 2-12 ATS during that streak and haven't covered since early December against Philadelphia when Hurts got nicked up in that game. So that's how ugly it's been for Chicago. So who knows? If it's ugly tonight and everyone's watching, thanks baseball, 4 sweeps, so everyone will be watching, maybe there could be a change. I don't know. But it's certainly the exact opposite is what has happened with everyone expected and all the hype surrounding this organization.
Yeah, here's what I think is going to happen with Eberflus. And remember, we brought that up when he was 4-1. Would be probably a good bet, first coach fired. I don't know when it's going to happen. I couldn't give you the timeline on that. But at this point, he's not coming back next year. I mean, that seems to be the most Captain Obvious thing that we could possibly say about this team right now. Fields, I have no idea. Do they bring him back next year? Do they attack another quarterback in the draft if they're picking 1 and 2 overall?
What can I even get for him? That's the other thing. I mean, if I go to Williams or if I get the number 1 pick, but what can I even get for Fields?
Yeah, forget about this team firing the head coach at this point, because they might wait until the end of the season based on the history of the organization. Like you talked about, they've never once done this, so they're going to play the long game with that. What would be worse than not firing the guy in season would be if they brought the guy back next year. There's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. It's already done. It's got to be a done deal.
Yep.
And then will Ron Rivera do something weird tonight and at the end of the game not recognize it to the media?
Yeah. Yet another reason to go for the win last night. You were coming out. You got a Thursday game, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, another one. The offense was gassed. Okay. So, rest assured, you're right. Right. A guy who's been known to gamble in Riverboat Ron moniker, and then he plays it safe and gets beat in overtime.
Well, how boring is that Riverboat?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that.
Happening.
Howell was good, though. I mean, certainly you got to have concerns about the Philadelphia defense, but Howell's looked good now in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That was great.
It was he was not pretty against the Bills.
Right. Fourth quarter was, that's true.
But also, Bills defensively are pretty good, damn good this year.
Mm-hmm.
So far through 4 games. I'd like to see this game end in a tie, and then Rivera comes out and he'll say, I didn't know games could end in a tie. That might be next for that guy. So
visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.